Picture the American Southwest at dusk. It's the evening of July 28th, 2025.
Right. Peak summer heat. Yeah.
Exactly. You're out in the high desert of Truth or Consequences in Mexico. The sun is just sort of dipping below the horizon, casting these really harsh, elongated shadows across the cracked asphalt.
It's a very specific vibe out there.
It really is. And into this setting, a white Kia Soul pulls into the public parking lot of the Sierra County Detention Facility.
Which is, a jail.
Right, a high-security jail. A man steps out of the driver's side door, but he doesn't walk toward the intake doors. He doesn't try to, flag down a guard or a deputy.
He just leaves.
He simply shuts the door, turns his back on the vehicle, and walks away on foot into the desert air.
Just completely vanishes.
Yeah, he leaves the car sitting right there, literally in the shadow of one of the most heavily monitored buildings in the county.
Which makes absolutely zero sense if you think about it.
Exactly. If you are someone running for your life or, intent on dropping off the face of the earth, why would you leave your primary mode of transportation at a high-security jail?
A place that's just saturated with high-definition cameras and license plate readers.
Right. So welcome to the Deep Dive. We're so glad you're here with us today. Okay, let's unpack this, because from the jump, the sources we're looking at paint a picture that refuses to make sense on the surface.
Yeah, we've got a massive stack of materials today. We are pulling from the official NAM use records, specifically file MP154922, along with local police reports from case 257147.
And we also have to shout out the incredible in-depth investigative media coverage from the Vanished podcast, which really brought a lot of this to light.
For sure. And what all these sources show us is this incredibly confusing timeline. It completely subverts the standard logic of evasion.
It really does. I mean, you have a location engineered for ultimate containment and surveillance, and he's using it as the starting line for a complete disappearance.
Right. And from a behavioral standpoint, it forces us to ask, are we looking at a highly calculated tactical maneuver? Or, the erratic actions of a mind that is just collapsing in real time?
That's the core question we have for you today.
Mm.
Our mission is to map out this guy's psychological unraveling, because you cannot separate what he did in those final 48 hours from the emotional state he was in.
You really can't. The forensic files and the media coverage, they all point back to the absolute necessity of establishing a baseline.
Right. Who is this guy before he walks away from that Kia?
Exactly. Before we dissect the anomalies of the abandoned vehicles, we have to understand the man behind the wheel. We are talking about a 32-year-old named Andrew Lee Dixon.
And his physical realities dictate a lot about how he moved through the world. I mean, the image of a guy vanishing into thin air usually conjures up someone, small, someone easily overlooked.
Sure, someone who blends in.
Right. But the police reports describe a guy who is 6 feet tall. He weighs 215 pounds. He has hazel eyes, brown hair, and this really prominent back tattoo.
He's a distinctly noticeable guy.
Yeah. And he was last seen wearing ripped blue jeans and a gray cut-off sleeve shirt, which is just standard survival wear for New Mexico summer.
Right, but he isn't exactly someone who just fades into the background of a small desert community. That physical footprint is crucial.
Yeah, really.
A man of that stature doesn't just slip away unnoticed without concerted effort or, frankly, incredibly tragic circumstances.
Because someone his size is generally less vulnerable to just random crimes of opportunity, right?
Exactly. So the mystery of his disappearance demands we look at the internal factors driving him. The investigative files describe his early life back in Oklahoma as being defined by, quote, complicated patterns.
Complicated patterns. That's one of those phrases that carries a lot of weight.
Oh, absolutely. When sociologists or forensic psychologists use that phrasing, they're almost universally pointing toward generational cycles of hardship.
Like systemic socioeconomic struggle.
Right. Familial instability, the kind of environment that is incredibly difficult to just break free from.
It's the kind of background where the past operates like a gravitational pull. And you see this pattern over and over in his file. He tries to achieve, escape velocity.
He literally packs up his life and drives across the country.
Yeah, seeking a fresh start in the Southwest. He lands first in Las Cruces, New Mexico, which seems like he was using it almost as a decompression chamber.
A buffer zone, yeah.
Right, before eventually moving further north to Truth or Consequences.
Which is a classic example of the geographical cure. It's a very common psychological strategy.
The geographical cure.
Yeah, the underlying belief is that changing your physical coordinates will somehow reset your internal reality, that it'll sever those complicated patterns.
But I look at this move to T or C, and I have to push back on the narrative that he was achieving some sort of total reinvention.
How so?
Well, Truth or Consequences is famous for its transient, friendly vibe. It's right near the Elephant Butte Reservoir.
Yeah.
People go there to drop off the radar.
Right. It attracts a certain crowd.
But when Andrew gets there, what does he do? He immediately moves in with a childhood friend's family.
Ah, right. He goes back to what he knows.
Exactly. For a guy seeking this supposed total reinvention, isn't he still relying heavily on his past social ties just to survive?
I think you are identifying the central vulnerability in his entire setup right there. He was desperately seeking autonomy, but he hadn't built the independent infrastructure to actually sustain it.
Moving onto a friend's couch is a survival mechanism. It's not independence.
Exactly. It shows his foundation was incredibly fragile. Now, the files do note he found work and seemed to be rebuilding some stability locally.
He's just trying.
He was putting in the effort. But when your entire safety net is composed of borrowed space and a new job, you lack any real shock absorbers.
The margin for error is zero. His entire world is hinging on one specific pillar. And as you read through the interviews, you realize what that pillar was.
It was his identity as a father.
Yes. The sources make one thing abundantly clear. Fatherhood was the role that mattered most to Andrew.
It was his core identity. The investigative media coverage highlighted this extensively. It wasn't just a peripheral aspect of his life. It was the engine driving his attempts to get stable.
But then the pillar cracks, and everything else comes down with it. The sources detail a really painful, recent legal dispute involving his child's mother.
Yeah, and we should be clear, we don't have the granular details of the family court proceedings, and honestly, the specific allegations aren't what we are analyzing here.
Right, we're impartial here. We're just looking at the timeline and the result.
Exactly. And the result was a court-mandated temporary order. It legally prevented him from having contact with his daughter until a future court date.
Which is just devastating.
What's fascinating here is the psychological impact of that legal action. It cannot be overstated. In sociological terms, an event like that can trigger a state of anomie in adult males.
Anomie. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. Anomie is the profound breakdown of the standards and values that govern an individual's place in society. It's what happens when the fundamental rules, roles, and social bonds that anchor you to reality just suddenly evaporate.
Wow. So losing his familial role completely displaced him.
Exactly. For someone who has already uprooted themselves from their geographical origins and is living on the margins, losing the one role that provides purpose creates a catastrophic vacuum.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. If you think of a person's psyche like a house, right? Most setbacks, like losing a job or your car breaking down, they damage the house.
Right, you break a window.
Yeah, you break a window, it's cold, it's uncomfortable. But the house stays standing.
Sure.
Taking his daughter away through a sudden legal mandate wasn't breaking a window, it was ripping out the central load-bearing wall.
That is a perfect analogy. And that structural collapse is exactly what his friends and roommates witnessed.
They described him as being emotionally raw, right?
Emotionally raw, yes, but it went far beyond standard grief. He wasn't just sad. He was enduring a high-intensity stress reaction.
He's trying to hold himself together while facing instability in basically every direction.
Right. He had no permanent home, his long-term relationship had ended, and now the state had cut off his access to his child. The pressure was coming from every conceivable angle.
Do you think this immense emotional pressure is what ultimately triggered the bizarre behavior that followed?
Absolutely. This unraveling is the exact context you have to keep in mind to understand the terrifying shift in his worldview in those final weeks of July 2025.
Because he doesn't just get depressed, he gets terrified.
Right. His friends noted a drastic shift. He became entirely consumed by fear.
The reports say he claimed he was being watched, that he was being followed.
He used very modern, specific terminology, too. He insisted he was being tracked and hacked.
Hacked. That's such an intense word to use.
Yeah, and he kept saying he was being pulled into, quote, something dangerous that he had no way of escaping.
Okay, but let's be real for a second here. We're talking about a guy living on a friend's couch in rural New Mexico, wearing a cutoff shirt, just working a normal job to get back on his feet.
Right.
Is it actually plausible that he was the target of some sophisticated professional-grade hacking and tracking operation? Or is this just a textbook psychological breakdown?
It's a really valid question, and investigators have to navigate this exact thing. We call it the paranoia-peril dichotomy.
The paranoia-peril dichotomy, I like that.
Yeah, the forensic report actually breaks this down into 3 distinct theories for us to consider.
Okay, let's hear it on.
Theory 1 is exactly what you just suggested. A severe psychological crisis. The intense stress of losing his daughter induced persecutory ideation.
So his mind just broke.
Basically, the vague nature of his claims, just saying something dangerous without naming a specific person, strongly points toward clinical paranoia. His mind couldn't process the emotional devastation, so it manufactured a physical enemy.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But I know the file doesn't just stop there.
No, they have to keep the door open for actual foul play because of his physical actions. That leads to theory 2, a legitimate threat.
Right.
This suggests Andrew was involved in undisclosed activities. The evidence isn't in his statements, it's in his behavior. As we'll see with the cars, he was taking actual evasive maneuvers. Hallucinations rarely compel someone to execute complex counter-surveillance tactics.
That's true. It's hard to accidentally do spy stuff.
Exactly. And then there is theory 3, which bridges the gap. Technological stalking.
Like cyber harassment.
Yes. We don't need a professional hacking syndicate to explain his fears. Consumer-level technology makes stalking terrifyingly accessible.
Oh, for sure. Anyone can buy an AirTag.
Right. A commercially available GPS tracker under a bumper or compromised location services on a smartphone would entirely justify his claims of being tracked. It only takes one motivated adversary.
And what's really unsettling is that the sources draw a direct parallel to another case that fits this exact same pattern.
The William Gray case.
Yes. William Gray disappeared from Sweeney, Texas back in October 2022. And the similarities are just wild.
They really are. Gray was also a man buckling under extreme pressure. He was facing a contentious divorce and recovering from severe back surgery.
So another guy whose life structure was actively crumbling.
Exactly. And just like Andrew, in the weeks before he vanished, Gray became convinced he was being watched and tracked.
But Gray actually left evidence of his paranoia around.
He did. He set up an array of security cameras around his property. He told his family he was meticulously backing up data on multiple drives to prove he was being targeted.
He even sent his ex-wife a police report number, warning her to protect their kids.
He really believed it. But here is the kicker. When investigators go looking for all this supposed digital evidence, what do they find?
Nothing.
A complete digital evidence vacuum. Zero digital footprint. Gray intentionally left his smartphone behind, completely severing his GPS.
It's just a black hole. Whether the threat was real or entirely in Andrew's head, the fear was real enough to make him execute this highly complex 48-hour sequence of events.
Right. So let's walk through that timeline meticulously, from July 28th to July 30th.
Let's do it. Phase 1. The evening of July 28th. Andrew pulls his white Kia Soul into the Sierra County detention facility. He parks and walks away.
Right.
Analyze this for me. Why a jail? You mentioned earlier it's a paradox.
It is. A jail is a fortress of cameras and law enforcement.
Yeah.
Leaving a car there is either an attempt to find the ultimate sanctuary, because if you're being hunted, you park where the police are watching.
Right, the bad guys can't get you there.
Exactly. Or it's a symbolic surrender. He believed the vehicle itself was bugged or tracked, so he ditched the compromised asset in a safe zone.
He's like, I can't drive this anymore, it's infected.
Precisely. But then phase 2 happens the morning of July 29th.
Less than 12 hours later.
Yeah. Andrew regains access to a second vehicle, a 2004 blue Toyota Camry.
And this wasn't his car.
No, it belonged to his roommate in TRC. Some sources call it mutually owned, but practically it was the roommate's. And Andrew takes it without telling him.
Which the roommate later reports is entirely out of character. He says Andrew never just took his property.
Exactly. And that brings us to phase 3, later that same day on July 29th.
The Camry turns up.
Yes. It's found abandoned by the New Mexico State Police in Socorro, New Mexico.
Which is roughly 75 miles north of TRC, straight up the I-25 corridor.
Right. The car is towed, but Andrew is gone.
I really want to break down the tactical inconsistencies between these two vehicles for you guys listening, because it is bizarre.
It's night and day.
Seriously. Vehicle 1, the Kia.
Okay.
It's a boxy white car, highly visible. It is legally registered to his exact identity. And he abandons it at a high-security location where he knows it will be found and logged instantly.
It's basically a beacon.
Yeah. And then Vehicle 2, the Camry. It's an incredibly common 20-year-old blue sedan. A total blend-in car.
It's invisible on the highway.
Totally. It's not explicitly registered to him alone, so a plate scanner won't flag his name. He uses it for transit, up a major highway and then dumps it seemingly randomly in a totally different town.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this looks exactly like a counter-surveillance tactic known as breaking a tail.
Breaking a tail.
Yeah. You deposit your known identity, the Kia, in a secure place. You switch to an anonymous vehicle, the Camry, and you immediately move jurisdictions to shake whoever is following you.
That is genuinely brilliant if he was actually being followed. But it leaves this huge question. Why abandon the Camry in Socorro?
That's the missing piece. Did it break down? It was a 2004, so mechanical failure is very possible.
Right. Or did he switch to foot travel in the desert?
Or did he drive 75 miles to meet a third party?
Oh, wow. A rendezvous.
Right. Someone who helped him disappear or someone who hurt him.
But tracking a man across 2 vehicles in 2 cities requires rapid, coordinated police work. And unfortunately for Andrew, that is exactly what did not happen.
No, it really didn't. Detective Sergeant Shane Jeffers initially took the case for the Truth or Consequences Police Department.
And what looked like a simple misunderstanding over a borrowed Camry quickly revealed itself to be a really complex missing persons case.
Jeffers faced critical challenges right out of the gate, the biggest one being the reporting delay. The roommate didn't report the Camry missing until July 30th.
So a full 48 hours after Andrew left the Kia at the jail.
Exactly. Which gave Andrew a massive head start. The first 48 hours are crucial, and the police didn't even know he was missing during that window.
But then, just as Jeffers is getting into it, he suddenly leaves the department.
Right. Shortly into the investigation, Jeffers is gone.
Can you explain the impact of a lead detective leaving like that?
It's devastating to a case. When a lead detective leaves, institutional memory vanishes. The nuanced grasp of the timeline, the early theories, it's gone.
And the family has to start all over again.
Exactly. Rapport with the family is broken. The case hits an immediate stagnation point.
Plus, they're dealing with these crazy jurisdictional dynamics.
The jurisdictional gaps are a nightmare here. You have the Truth or Consequences Police Department, you have the Sierra County Sheriff who oversees the jail, and you have the New Mexico State Police up in Socorro.
3 different agencies holding 3 different pieces of the puzzle.
The sources compare this to the Travis Robertson case from 2006. Robertson vanished, and there was a breakdown in communication between the Siloam Springs and Fayetteville departments in Arkansas.
Let me guess. They both thought the other was handling it.
Exactly. No one investigated for years because both assumed the other agency was taking the lead. Andrew's case risks facing that exact same fate.
But Andrew's family didn't just sit back and let that happen.
No, they mobilized.
Because of all these law enforcement bottlenecks, Andrew's brother, Isaac Smith, set up a GoFundMe campaign to hire a private investigator.
They felt they had no other choice.
Yeah, Isaac explicitly stated on the page that the missing vehicle hadn't been recovered and the family was terrified. And you see this amazing grassroots community support.
People really stepped up.
They did. You have specific donors, like Mandy Flippo giving $250, Marie Hadfield giving $100. They raised $831 out of a $1,600 goal pretty quickly.
It shows how desperate the situation was.
So what does this all mean?
Well, the synthesis of all this is tragic. Andrew fell through the cracks. He fell through the cracks of his own mental health, unable to process the loss of his child.
Yeah.
He fell through the cracks of the family court system, and finally, he fell through the cracks of the rural law enforcement system.
It's just layer after layer of systemic failure. And that wraps up our deep dive for today. We really want to thank you for exploring this intricate web of legal despair, psychological unraveling, and these crazy logistical anomalies with us.
Yes, thank you for joining us. And please remember the TRC Police Department is still actively seeking tips. If you know anything, call them at 575-894-7111.
And now we want to hear from you. Get down in the comment section on YouTube or on your podcast app. Do you think Andrew's decision to park his Kia at the high-security detention facility was a calculated tactical move to safely ditch a tracked car?
Or do you see it as a symbolic, psychological surrender from a man who had totally lost his grip on reality? Let us know what you think.
Absolutely, we read all the comments.
And hey, if you enjoy this kind of detailed analysis, make sure you subscribe to the show on YouTube and all your podcast platforms so you never miss a custom-tailored deep dive.
Before we go, we always like to leave you with one final thought.
Yeah, mull this over. Andrew Dixon left Oklahoma to find a fresh start, right? Escaping his past. But in the end, by systematically abandoning his cars, his phone, and his digital footprint out there in the New Mexico desert, he may have achieved the ultimate tragic form of a fresh start, erasing his identity completely.
Wow.
So did he succeed in vanishing on his own terms? Or did the very dangers he feared finally catch up to him on the I-25 corridor?
That is haunting. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.